All of Patton's guidance on procedures and formations was practical and rooted in experience rather than theory. He clearly explained the role of air support, insisted that marching followed principles that could be taught and applied consistently, and cautioned that command in battle could never be reduced to a rigid formula. In his view, warfare involved an element of art that defied precise definition. He was willing to outline the likely stages of an operation involving tanks, infantry, artillery, and air support, the same combination of forces that characterized German blitzkrieg tactics. But beyond that, he expected commanders to rely on their own judgment, imagination, and initiative in dealing with unforeseen circumstances. In his provisional notes on tactics and techniques of desert warfare of July 30th, 1942, he emphasized that organization and equipment were far less important than discipline, marksmanship, and the determination to close with and destroy the enemy. He believed that a commander could direct operations from the air in a liaison aircraft through the use of a two-way radio, remaining airborne until contact with the enemy had been established. After that point, a staff officer could continue observation from the plane, while the commander returned to the ground to lead the attack personally. Watching a battle from the top of a tank, he argued, was pointless. Wars were won by killing the enemy. Around midday, he left the Desert Training Center and returned to the ranch he and his family were renting near Whittier. Beatrice drove him to the airport at Palm Springs, where an aircraft was waiting to take him to Washington. She then continued to San Marino, left her car with his sister Nita, and caught the first available flight from Los Angeles to Washington. The Desert Training Center itself was largely Patton's creation, both an innovation and an experiment. He established it rapidly and without prolonged or elaborate planning, a reflection of his own style of action. His ability to inspire enthusiasm and maintain morale among men operating under harsh desert conditions sprang from a leadership style often described as uncompromising yet understanding. He involved himself in every exercise, every training event, and every aspect of the program. A strict disciplinarian, he demanded high standards from his troops. Within only 2 weeks of arriving, he had several officers placed under arrest and ordered inquiries into their failure to carry out routine responsibilities. At the same time, he constantly instructed, supervised, encouraged, criticized, and praised the men under his command. Soldiers and officers never knew what vehicle might suddenly appear carrying the commanding general. He could emerge from a jeep, a Packard sedan, a tank, a half-track, a Cub aircraft, or even a tractor. He spent a great deal of time on an isolated rise between the Coxcomb and Chuckwalla Mountains that the troops nicknamed the King's Throne. From this vantage point, he carefully observed columns of tanks and motorized units moving across the desert below. Whenever he noticed an error or thought of a better way to do something, he immediately transmitted instructions over the radio. The troops identified so strongly with him that they disliked the War Department's decision to name the installation Camp Young in honor of Lieutenant General S.B.M. Young, a veteran of the Indian campaigns and the Army's first Chief of Staff. To the men who trained there, the place belonged to Patton. The impression he made on visitors was powerful. One observer later wrote that no experience had been more interesting or exciting than a visit to the camp. What impressed him most was Patton's vivid and forceful leadership, the experimental work being conducted, the variety of equipment in use, the contributions Patton himself had made, the overall system of command, and even the memorable ride in the general's own tank. Throughout his time at the center, Patton never lost sight of his ultimate objective, preparing soldiers for combat. He focused relentlessly on teaching men how to kill effectively and instinctively. Introducing one speaker, he famously declared, "Men, I want to introduce to you the noblest work of God, a killer." He possessed an exceptional understanding of machinery and equipment. If a soldier managed to get a tank stuck, Patton might angrily reprimand him, but then he would help pull the vehicle free. On one occasion, irritated by the slow pace at which tanks were being unloaded from railroad flat cars, he personally demonstrated the proper method. Drawing on experience he had gained in France, he showed the men how to position the timbers so the tanks could roll smoothly from the rail cars to the ground. Despite his harsh exterior, he cared deeply about his troops. As he once remarked, "I'm a hell of a guy. I'm giving the men hell 1 minute and crying over them the next." His concern for them was genuine, and they recognized it. On one occasion, while landing his Cub aircraft, he narrowly avoided striking telephone poles near his headquarters. Without receiving any orders, the troops removed the poles and buried the wires. They had no intention of allowing their general to be endangered. When Patton finally left, his departure was keenly felt throughout the command. Many of the soldiers wanted to accompany him regardless of where he was going or what assignment awaited him. They knew they would miss him, and for good reason. No other leader inspired the same energy, excitement, and sense of purpose that he brought to those who served under him.